come back. And we're glad for you joining us today. We have with us our special guest, one of our brilliant legal minds here in our community, Holly Melzer. And so glad to have you, Holly.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you, and just want to talk to you about what's going on in your world and some of the things that brought you to where you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in a small town near Fort Myers, Florida, in Southwest Florida. So I'm not from Bay County. And I went to the University of Florida for undergrad and law school. I was a telecommunications major. Did not know I was going to be a lawyer or even thought that was an option at the time. Growing up, my whole family really was in the medical field. Nobody was a physician or anything, but my parents both worked in hospitals. My sister had an interest. She's now a physician's assistant here locally. And so I was just surrounded by the medical community, so I thought I was going to be a doctor. I've always made good grades, and I've always been a star student and in leadership roles, and I just thought that was my path. And I went to the University of Florida from sort of a smaller town school.
What was the town?
Lehigh Acres.
Lehigh Acres.
Lehigh Acres. There's your plug, guys. That's my hometown. It was a great place to grow up.
Yeah.
Lots of bike riding and outdoors and everything. But when I got to the University of Florida, I took biology with probably 400 of my closest friends in a big auditorium, something I was not used to.
Big school.
Big school, which I loved. And at the same time, I was taking a public speaking class with maybe 20 or 30 people. And I hated biology. I just didn't think...
Seems like everyone I talk to hates biology.
Well, I mean, I guess if you, I don't know, I just tapped into a different side of my brain.
You either love it or hate it.
Yeah, I suppose so. And I just realized that taking that with the juxtaposition with the public speaking class, how much I love the public speaking class and how much I did not love biology. And so that sort of shifted my path a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of kids, when they go to college, they don't really know what they want to be. I mean,
that's right.
You're 17. I had just turned 18. I have an August birthday, so I had just turned 18 when I went to school. And so I was exploring my options and what I wanted to be when I grow up. Sometimes I still think I'm exploring options on what I want to be when I grow up. But so that sort of shifted my path a little bit. And I ended up with a telecommunications degree in undergrad. I thought I was going to, I've always been into sports. And so I thought I wanted to do some sort of sports casting or something with sports-related communications.
Yeah.
And then I interned at CNN for a summer, which was amazing.
Oh, amazing.
I got to live in Atlanta, experience the city life, which I loved. And CNN was an amazing opportunity to see a lot of how the sausage gets made before it gets on television. And I loved it. I loved being a part of action. And this was in 2002.
Yeah.
So 9/11 had just happened.
Yeah.
There's a lot of news stories.
A lot of news going on.
A lot happening in the Middle
changing.
East. Yes. And so it was an exciting time to be in the news world. And I loved it and thought I was going to work there. I got offered a position to work at CNN when I graduated the following year. And then, of course, with 9/11 happening and the Gulf War started heating up, that they had to fill my position immediately.
Wow.
So I was kind of left without a job come January, February of my last year in undergrad. And so...
And at this point, still had not turned towards law.
No, not at all.
Wow.
Not at all. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And so I actually moved back home, which was hard. You know, you're on your own for 4 years. I've always been a very independent person. And so I moved home, and in the course of moving home, a dear friend of mine I actually was a nanny for her kids when I was in high school, and really became really close with the whole family, but especially her. And while I was gone in college, she was actually raped in her own home, and it was horrible, of course. And she took a different stance as a sexual assault survivor and was very outspoken about it. And fast forward the summer that I was home, I helped her with her children.
It's a life-changing moment.
A lot of life-changing moments here for both of us. I was with her throughout her trial, and that was really my first experience in a courtroom. And it was a terrible experience, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We got to watch them pick everything from preparing witnesses to picking a jury, seeing her on the stand, seeing how the attorneys treated her as a victim and treated him
Victimized
as
again.
a defendant, and how the laws were set up at the time to protect defendants and not victims. And ultimately, he was found not guilty.
Really?
Yes. And so I was not a witness. I was there just to support her and her family. And so there wasn't, we call it invoking the rule. So if you're a witness in any sort of hearing or trial, you cannot attend the hearing or trial because it taints your testimony.
Yeah.
So not being a witness, I was able to see the entire
Both sides of it.
both sides of it, and it was a really terrible experience. And that, I think, was the first time I thought, this can't be.
It's not right.
This
It's
can't
not
be
right.
how
It's not
this
just.
happens, right?
Yeah.
And so that was my first experience in a courtroom and with the justice system, and realizing that maybe I could use that experience for good,
Yes.
because it was a terrible experience for her.
Yes.
The defendant actually ended up serving a 5-year term because he was on probation. The judge had different standards to apply to that. So when he got out, he went up north and he raped another woman and was
Oh, my
found guilty
goodness.
and is in prison. So the jury got it wrong that time.
They got it wrong.
They got it wrong. And
Was there any DNA evidence involved or anything like that?
yeah, I mean, we could have a whole separate podcast on the trial.
We will sometime.
Yeah.
I'd like
yes. But the jury got it wrong, and
But is this where Holly turned the corner towards law? Is that really what?
I think it planted a seed and was watering the seed, and
Yeah.
the seed was planted before that, but maybe it was just, I was kind of uncomfortable with the idea because I never knew any lawyers. It just wasn't a part of my life.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't think I could do it.
Yeah. But you obviously can.
Yes, and I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
But my husband, so at the time I was just dating my current husband, and we were long distance, and through that summer, and then some at home and helping my friend through this whole ordeal. And I was working for actually a corporate company who owns a lot of hospitals. So again, I was still in that hospital
Yeah.
medical realm in my brain because that's what I knew, that's what I was familiar with. I figured that I needed to get out. I needed to get out of my hometown, and that's how I was going to grow. So I packed up everything I owned in the back of my car and put it on an auto train. And the train took me and my car and all my belongings to Virginia, where I had never been before. And I moved.
How did we pick Virginia?
Well, I ended up being a fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Great.
And
great
so that was
organization.
kind of my ticket out.
Yeah.
I had experience with St. Jude through my sorority at the University of Florida. Tried out has a lot of support for St. Jude, and so I was familiar with that. And so I began that path on going someplace I'd never been by myself, not knowing a soul. And at the time, I'd already taken the LSATs and thought that, well, maybe if I do well, maybe that will develop. I'm still trying to figure everything out. When you're in your 20s, you're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I moved to Virginia, and while I was there, I was accepted to the University of Florida Law School. And, my husband, my now husband, boyfriend at the time, told me, I really think you should be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I think that was really what I needed, somebody to tell me, you would be really good at this, and you can do it. I just needed that extra push.
Yeah.
And someone to believe
Thank
in me.
God for Daniel.
Yeah,
That's
he's
fantastic.
amazing. Yeah, he's still my biggest supporter.
Yeah.
So that's how my path to law school was. It just was never a part of my plan.
Yeah.
You know what they say about plans.
So,
but
and one of the things you went through with your friend being a victim of a crime, you didn't feel, have you ever practiced criminal law, or did you ever want to?
I did practice criminal law. When I first started my career here, I began at the state attorney's office, so I was a prosecutor for a year in the misdemeanor division, a lot of DUIs and minor batteries, but some really bad guys commit, and girls commit misdemeanors too. And so I loved my time there. It was a really good experience. I made some really great friends and who I still keep in touch with and colleagues, and really got me back into the courtroom where I first opened my eyes into the justice system and got a lot of trial experience. And then I was recruited by a local law firm, Barron and Redding, who does not do criminal law. But that year, I realized I didn't want to do criminal law. And even through law school, I realized I really liked property and what I call nerd law. Nerd law. You know,
it's
when
all
you're
right.
when
Someone's got to do it.
someone's got to do it, and
we need
there's
it done.
Yeah, for sure. And I've really enjoyed it. But when
So your focus now is more corporate and real estate.
yes, business law, banking law. I do a lot of represent a lot of banks and financial institutions, and real estate.
Yeah, a lot of reading.
A lot of reading.
A lot of reading.
Yeah, nerd law.
Yeah, and that's all right. You know, the whole criminal law thing, you know, I have a daughter that's an attorney in Birmingham, and she's going through what their mentoring program she's at a very large firm. They make you do some of each of it for a few months, and you have to work under the partner that's got that division. And whether you want to do that or not, they want you to try it so you could see. And she'll tell me, you know, I hate this. This is not what I want to do. But, you know, I find that criminal law puts you so close to some really icky stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That it affects your family, it affects your life. It's like the young people that I meet in my life that love animals and want to become a veterinarian. And I shake my head and I'm not sure you do. Why? Because you love animals. And you're going to see them run over and hurt and abused. And there's still a part of that veterinarian that, you're going to help animals, but you're also going to see a side of it that's really, really uncomfortable and that you're really not going to like. And I think it's the same way with law. Yes, we want to help people, but you're going to be down in the pit where you're helping them during some really dark times. And it can't help but affect you. You
right.
know?
And my experience in the courtroom with my friend made me realize I never wanted to represent criminals or people charged with crimes. I'm glad there are people who do that because it's essential to defending our Constitution
it's part of the
and our justice system. However, it's just my experience with that. The laws were at the time such that it became unjust for her. Clearly. And the laws have changed. She actually was instrumental in getting some of those laws changed.
Tell me about that. What specifically changed?
So.
And this was, 2002, did you say?
I can't remember what year exactly it was. It was around then. But at the time, the defense had the last word in closing arguments. So, the prosecutor would have their closing arguments and the defense would go, and that was it. So the defense could come up with all sorts of theories, and then the prosecution never had a chance to rebut, even though the prosecution has the burden of proof. So since that time, she channeled all of her angst and anger and frustration into doing something good, and was very instrumental in getting that law changed with Governor Jeb Bush. And so now the law is that the prosecutor has the last word. So I think there's some statistics out there on how many more guilty verdicts have resulted from that change. And in fact, the person who worked with my friend and the governor in getting that was appointed to the first DCA and just retired. So
that's great.
Yeah.
You know, I found that I was actually a foreman on a jury here a few years back, and I remember thinking to myself, how important it is to hear both sides, because I was totally convinced this person was guilty. I was like, oh, this is a slam dunk. This is like, this guy's guilty. And then we took a break. We came back. We heard the defense, and it totally changed my mind. I actually voted for him not guilty in the end. And it goes to show that there's two sides, and you got to hear them. But, you know, when you get into the really icky crimes, you know, the capital offenses, it would be hard to be around. And not just that time, but every day. That would be a hard life. It'd be a hard life to deal in the criminal court element. It's got to be done. we got to protect people's freedom and the Constitution and all that, but it would be a hard way to live. It really would. I'm loving this conversation. We're going to take a break just a moment, and I'll be right back with Holly Melzer.
Heroes Child is a nonprofit organization that is on a mission to help community heroes with the everyday cost of childcare. We know that heroes like our military personnel, first responders, and foster families need care for their children. Heroes Child awards these families scholarships that go to help pay their childcare tuition. Use the QR code on the screen to donate now or visit heroeschild.org today.
Hey, we're back here on My Big Comeback, and we've got Holly Melzer with us. And she's sharing a little bit about a bunch of what's going on in law and things, and always interested in talking to someone about the legal stuff. Daniel is a dentist here in town.
My
Brilliant.
husband, yes.
Yeah, he's
yes.
brilliant. A great guy. I love him. I think it's a wonderful what else are you involved in here in the community?
I've been involved with Anchorage Children's Home for many, many years. I'm no longer on the board there, but I served probably for 15 years on the board of directors.
Great organization.
Amazing organization, doing wonderful things for our at-risk youth here.
Yeah.
And I've been on the Airport Authority since 2019, December 2019. I was appointed by the Bay County Board of County Commissioners to serve that capacity.
When did the new airport open? I still call it the new airport.
Right. The new airport.
I live at
ECP.
the old airport. But
Right,
still,
you do.
yeah.
You really do. It opened. This is going to be our 15th year.
So you've been there for all of it, basically.
Well, let's see.
Or shortly after we moved there.
No, so 2019. So I've been on the Airport Authority just for 5 years.
Yeah.
But yes, I've been in Panama City. I used to fly in and out of PFN, which is where you live now.
Yeah.
When I was living in Virginia, and my husband, boyfriend at the time, was living here.
Every once in a while, we still have a plane try to land there, but
well, they probably figured it out pretty quickly.
Yeah. There's a neighborhood there. It's the new airport is. I just saw last night, I guess, on the news, y'all are opening a new wing or a new.
Yeah, so we call this the build out. So
Build out.
there's been shell space.
New gate. Yeah.
Yeah, there are 2 more gates that we that should open this week, and gates 8 and 9, and so that's very exciting.
Yeah.
But this is shell space that was built when the new airport was constructed, and just for future expansion. And it's above baggage claim. And so it's always been there, but it's just been totally shell space. And so we've been working over the past year or so, or longer, to get that built out, to provide much needed seating for passengers waiting for their flights. There'll be new concessions, and of course the 2 more gates.
Great. So, and I saw they had a new flight to Austin.
Yes, new flight
And
to
a direct
Austin.
flight and a new direct flight to New York.
Nonstop to
which is great.
LaGuardia, yes.
How many days is it going to New York? Is it every day or?
It's every Saturday throughout the summer, except 4th of July week, then it's daily service.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
That'll be super.
Yes, and so if it becomes very popular and they sell a lot of seats, hopefully that's something that Delta will make a more regular flight.
You'd be surprised, or you wouldn't be, but a lot of people be surprised how many visitors we get from places like New York and Nashville. I mean, tons of people from Nashville. I guess Panama City and Walton County and Bay County, they're super popular among the Nashville people.
Yes.
And it's just like where they all go. This is vacation spot for
Yes.
them.
Yes. It's Little Tennessee over, especially in the 38
Oh,
area.
yeah. Like I know a lot of people over that way that do that. So, when we're talking about that, the Anchorage Children's Home, the airport, and anything else that you're involved in now or have been?
I'm on an advisory committee for a local bank.
Yeah.
I've done supervisory committee work for a local credit union. Of course, there's a lot of bar organizations I've been involved with, professional committees and things like that. I'm raising 2 teenagers right now, so
That'll keep you busy.
I've had to scale back a little bit. I am a 5-star Uber driver for my 2 children right
Oh,
now,
yeah.
so that
Yeah.
keeps me very busy. So I've
they
always
do.
tried to scale back in the number of things that I'm involved in so I could focus. I never want to be a board member who just, clocks it in or phones it in. I want to be effective in my board work, my career, my home life, and my work in the community. Is just being effective.
What do you think with the airport? What's the biggest thing coming for the airport?
Well, We are grown. We were just busting at the seams.
Yeah.
So when we first opened the new airport, we had, I think our last year at PFN, I think we had around 300,000 passengers. And so the end of last year, we were pushing 1.9 million passengers.
Really?
So
Wow.
the degree of growth is something that I don't know was anticipated. Obviously, we knew we were going to grow when the board at the time made the very brave decision to move out there. It was not popular with a lot of people. And so I'm very thankful that people who
It's vision.
the board had that vision.
Vision.
And it was unpopular with some people, and they did it anyway, and I'm so glad that they did, because look where we are now. So the biggest thing I think coming for the airport is the terminal expansion.
Yeah.
And we're going to build a new terminal to the north, and that'll provide another 3 gates. So with the 2 that we just have, it's another 5 gates. And that's going to be huge for our airport and huge for our
it gives
community.
us more options, which makes things much more convenient, much more choices. I love it. The older I get, the less I want to drive. I've lived here since 1980. I moved here when I was 12 years old. My father retired and took his first civil service job at Tyndall. And I was telling our last guest that, it used to be, if you were where Pier Park is, you were in the middle of the woods. It's like, why are you way out there in the middle of nowhere? Now it's like bustling Panama City Beach. I feel like when they took a bold step, a bold vision to move way out there with the airport, but it'll grow. You will see town come to meet it quicker than people think.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of industry going in around the airport.
So much industry, and that's another thing that we work on as an airport. And when I was chair of the airport for 2 years. I was the first female chair of the airport authority ever in this community. I was just 40 years old when I was elected by my other board members to do that, and it was just the most amazing experience. I love our airport, and I love serving on this board and bringing our vision to life. And so while I was the chair, I got to travel a lot with Becca Hardin and the EDA and Ben Moorman. They're amazing in promoting our community. Jennifer Conley with the Northwest Florida EDA, essentially. And so we're attracting businesses to our area, and specifically to our airport, to diversify our economy and diversify our workforce, so we're not pigeonholed in just a tourist community. And so we have so many companies who have come to our community, especially our airport. Jobs.
Good jobs.
Good paying jobs.
That's what we need.
And when we have not let our foot off the gas, we have so many. I just met with a company this week who's interested in coming to our airport campus. We have Project Inspire, which is FSU's new project coming. I'm on that advisory council as well. You know, I'm a Gator. But I love my community, and this is going to be amazing for our community. FSU Project Inspire is bringing an engineering program to our campus at ECP. And so they're building a state-of-the-art wind tunnel, advanced manufacturing.
And then got the new hospital.
Hospital. They just announced yesterday that they're going to build a new hospital. So with Project Inspire coming to the airport, that's also creating buzz with international and national companies to come to our airport, because they see our vision, see our expansion, and see our community being able to support their business in coming to our airport to.
Well, it's all about infrastructure, because people have to buy houses, people have to have good jobs.
Right.
To buy cars, people have to have good jobs. And, and also, you've got teenagers, I've got teenagers. They don't have to stay in Panama City, but it'd be a nice option.
We want to give them every opportunity
we want them to be, well, I've got a good job here, I don't have to leave.
Right.
Because, I've seen a lot of families where they felt like, when it came that time to get on with your career, there wasn't many options here. But Panama City's changing. We're growing, and I like the growth. I like the growth. I think it's been good growth, and
Absolutely.
I'll always be, the East Side kind of guy. Grew up in Callaway, always had a lot of military roots. When I graduated Rutherford High School, it was the whole school was military or paper mill. Those were the two things. And, Panama City's changing, giving more opportunities. And I like that. I like it that our kids have a chance to work here if they want to.
Right.
If they want to. And well, let's talk about you a little more personal. You've seen. I know you're well traveled. So you
Yes.
just got back from Costa Rica.
Yes.
What's your favorite place to go when you leave the country?
We love Costa Rica, but we do love traveling. We love traveling with our children. I did not travel at all growing up. The first time I left the country was for our honeymoon. We went over to London and Paris, and that
that's
was my
cool.
first experience.
One of my bucket lists. Yeah.
Out of the country with, aside from a little Mexico trip
Yeah.
for senior spring,
Yeah, senior spring break.
Yeah. But other than that, so that really just created this love of traveling and seeing the world. Panama City, and I grew up in a smaller town than Panama City, that it's so important to experience other cultures and how other people live and how they view things.
Yeah.
And we want to bring that to our children as well. So we've traveled to about 15 countries with our kids. And
15 countries.
Yeah. Yes.
So mostly Europe, South America.
So
Have you done
we've
Australia?
not yet. So we've done a lot of the Caribbean. We've done several countries in Europe. We've been to Europe 3 times with them. And
You done Italy?
we have not done Italy. Now that's on
It's
on
a
our
little
list.
further, yeah.
We've got a long list of places
Yeah.
we still want to travel to.
Yeah.
We love Costa Rica. The Pura Vida lifestyle
What
is a
is,
thing.
what is it with Costa? Is it a particular resort or
No,
it's just the whole country?
It's, Pura Vida is a saying that Costa Ricans have. And it's not just a saying, it's a way of life. It's enjoying the simple things of life. And that's one thing that we've learned through our travels. We love to speak to the people who live there, what it's like to live there
Yeah,
somewhere else.
that's neat.
And, having a big house is not important to them. Having a nice car is not important to them, possibly because their roads are terrible and people drive like crazy people.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
so this materialistic culture in America is not important to them.
Yeah.
And that's a breath of fresh air, just
Yeah,
to enjoy nature. They have, we stayed more in the rainforest area in an eco resort this time, the first half, and just enjoying the fresh air. You could drink the water right out of the spigot. It tastes amazing. There's no
Really?
bleach in it. There's no chemicals. It's not tainted. There's no boil water notices. And because they care about the earth.
Yeah.
And, I represent developers. And so you have to balance development, responsible development with preserving Mother Nature, and especially in this area. So we've just enjoyed their way of life, and the people are amazing there. The beaches are gorgeous.
I've heard from other people that Costa Rica is a great place to go.
It is, and it's not one thing. The food is amazing. The fruit is so fresh because they pick it when it's ripe and then they serve it to you. There is no picking it and 3 months later they spray it down with stuff and then you get it at your supermarket.
Yeah, you get it at
and
your supermarket.
everything's
Well
so healthy
processed,
there. Well processed, and everything's so healthy there, including the people. And so it's just the
So
lifestyle.
where are some of the places on your bucket list you haven't gone yet?
Italy,
Italy,
Greece,
Greece.
Africa. I'd love to go to India.
Uh,
Yeah, well,
I don't know. I mean, I guess it'd be great to see.
yeah,
great to see.
we'd love to go on a safari in Africa, see the Big Five.
Yeah, the Big Five.
Would
Got
love to
some
do
friends,
that.
yeah,
South Africa, we'd love to go fishing in Panama.
Yeah.
We haven't been to Alaska yet. We're traveling to Hawaii this summer. But, I mean, there's this whole big world out there to see. So
It is.
our list is long.
It is amazing to travel to. And, you're meeting people, experiencing people's way of life. It's a great thing.
It
It's
is.
it's part of the life education, I call it.
Absolutely.
Seeing places and how other people live.
Yes. I read a quote the other day that they said travel is part of a book. And if you don't travel, you only read one page.
Oh,
And
that's
so, especially for our children who are just kind of in a bubble here,
Yeah.
they've got a wonderful life.
Yeah.
And we want to give them a wonderful life here, but we want them to experience the world
Yeah.
and see how other people live. And we're doing that. And, we would love for them to study abroad and live abroad if they could. it's just been a great experience. And traveling with your family. I mean, it doesn't even matter where you're going, but traveling just brings its own adventures.
Yeah, it's an adventure.
One time, 2 years ago, when we were traveling to Europe over the summer, none of us had our luggage the entire time. For 10 days, none of us had luggage. And so it really, when my teenage daughter says, I've learned that you just don't need that much stuff. And I was like, worth it.
Buy a couple of T-shirts at the airport.
Oh,
and hit the road.
we were in Germany. We bought the tacky German T-shirts and with the pretzel on the lederhosen. So that's something we'll always remember.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't even matter where you go. It's just being together and experiencing all these adventures together.
Many years ago, I took off a month. The only time in my life I've ever taken off a month, and we drove to Las Vegas. We took a month. We stopped every couple of days. Stayed the night there, saw whatever was in that city, drove to another city. And I remember my girls, they were teenagers then, my older ones were teenagers then, and they fought it like, we're going to do what? We're not even going? You don't even know where we're going? I said, we're just going. We're going across the country. And they will tell you to this day, it was the greatest vacation of our life.
Absolutely.
Because we just stopped there and did whatever. If we're in Dallas, went to the JFK Museum.
Well, and it was
it's there.
It was the in-between.
Yeah, it was the in-between,
Vegas.
The experience
it was
of
the
doing
in-between.
it.
And I mean, and that is life, right? It's
life.
the in-between that you have to experience, not just your goal, getting to your goal.
That is wonderful. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with My Big Comeback. We've got our guest, Holly Melzer. Be back in just a moment.
Harvest Christian Academy, quality child care and preschool for children infant to 5 years old. We are state certified and licensed through DCF with an experienced caring staff. We also offer free volunteer pre-kindergarten for all 4-year-olds. Harvest Christian Academy for all your child care needs. Enroll your child today. Call 850-271-9647.
Hey, this is John Ramsey with My Big Comeback. We've got Holly Melzer with us. Holly, tell me something about, you mentioned just a moment ago, just one page on a book. What you reading these days?
Well, I read physical books. I know you and I talked offline about.
I'm an audible person.
I know. I'm a visual person, so I think I would just get easily distracted. There's a lot of noise in my head anyway, a lot of traffic up there, and so I'm a visual person, so I love a physical book. I don't do Kindle or anything. And so I like historical fiction.
Yeah.
I like psychological thrillers.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I just finished a beach read while I was on vacation. I really like to stick to fiction.
Did you read All the Light You Cannot See?
That's my favorite book I've ever read.
That's one of my favorite books I've ever read.
Yeah.
And how did you think the Netflix did with the
I actually
story?
haven't seen the Netflix.
Okay, I'm not going to run it. I mean, it's nothing can replace a book.
The book is always better than the movie.
Well, and if you think about it, I mean, you can't fit that much in. The details in a book, you'd be watching a 20-hour movie.
Well,
so you can't fit it all in.
The story is beautiful and amazing and poignant,
story.
but the way that Anthony Doerr, the author, wrote it
it's one of my favorite books
so
of
beautiful.
all time.
It is one of my favorite books of all time. And it's alternating chapters. It's, World War II for the viewers and listeners who
I've read every World War II fiction book that there is, I think.
Yeah, so that was a beautiful story. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. So if you're listening or watching, get the book. But I've read a lot of World War II historical fiction books. Most recently, The Women.
Yeah.
That's probably number 2 on my all-time favorite list. Yeah. It's a beautiful, well-written story about the women in Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam. Yeah, that was Brandy's favorite.
It was great, and love that author as well. I've read The Nightingale from the same author. Also a beautiful, tear-jerking story. I've read The Tattooist of Auschwitz.
Yeah, those are great stories.
Very great stories. I think my love of World War II stories started when we read Number of the Stars in 4th grade. Yeah. I still remember that.
You know what it is with World War II? It's the extremes of humanity. And that's what you're seeing in World War II. People that have lost, not something, but lost everything.
Yes.
People that their families are being wiped out. Their world is being wiped out. I just read a terrible title, but it's Nazi Billionaires. Mm-hmm. And it talks about how much when the government took over these businesses like Porsche, like all those, Ferdinand Porsche in Germany, all of the Rothschilds and all of that being the elder Rothschild being put in jail by Adolf Hitler and ransomed. Basically, his family had to buy him out for him to get out, and the extremes these people went through. And you can see why it became a world war, because it was like everything turned on its head. And I think the reason why it's important that we read it and understand it is because you always think, growing up as a child, you think this could never happen. But it happened to these people. And it happened and very much a modern society. The whole world thought it was the end of the world. World War II looked like the end of the world because things had got so extreme. And I think people don't realize how close the world really is to big, big changes. And we are now.
Absolutely.
We are now.
Absolutely. I mean, World War II, what fascinates me about it are two things. One, how really one person could manipulate an entire, create an entire regime to do what they did. Yeah. And there's so many lessons in that, so it never happens again.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's so poignant for me from a survivor perspective. The last time that we went to Europe last summer, we went to Dachau. And after reading all these books and seeing all the movies, our children have seen Schindler's List and they've seen The Pianist. Powerful. The whole thing. It's important to see the whole thing. And so Bailey, my teenage daughter, has read World War II historical fiction, the Book of Lost Names. She stayed up to 4 a.m. crying. But it's so important that these survivors, and once they were liberated, they had nothing and no one. Nobody wanted them. And like the end of Schindler's List, where do we go now?
Yeah.
Don't go east. They don't want you. Yeah. And so they were left with nothing. No family, no resources, not even food or clothes. And really, it was a lesson for me, like the hurricane.
Yes.
We lost what we thought was everything.
Yeah.
And it's just having these survivor stories taught and recognized by people is so important.
I think it is. I think that a lot of people, we just get too comfortable and realize, I know when the hurricane happened, of course, there was no cell signal for a while. There was no news for a while. And you keep thinking, and then when the news finally comes back on, we get electricity on, we're wondering why the whole world isn't talking about us.
Right.
Because when your world gets wiped out, you expect everyone, but around the other communities, and this is what I think of when I see like the hurricane that hit South Florida a couple of years back. Those people, I knew from the survivor side, those people's world just got wiped out, and we're picking out what we want to eat for dinner. We're not even thinking about it. And when you're in it, you're in it. Right. And it was the hurricane was a life-changing Panama City moment. And I tell Olivia, I said, when you are an old woman, you will have people talk back, and you will say, I was in Hurricane Michael. Yeah. And it changed the way our landscape looked. It changed who we are.
It changed who we are at an individual level and a community level.
It really did.
I don't think any of us are the same since then. For better, for worse, I think for better. Because it's really put things in perspective, and comfort can really be debilitating.
Yeah.
And, I actually shared something on Facebook the other day about really God wants you to be forged in the fire, not to be comfortable. And I think one of my least favorite things that people say is, as long as you're happy. No, that's not what we're here for our happiness. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, so no, it's not as long as you're happy. And, a lot of people associate comfort with happiness and happiness with comfort, but it's not that at all.
No. Let me use your legal mind just a moment. Like some of the big stuff happening in our world, the whole struggle with power between the judiciary and the executive branch. I mean, what do you really feel about that? I mean, because obviously it's coming down to a showdown, and regardless of who the president is, pretend we don't know who the president is for a minute. Where's the final say going to be? Is the court, the Supreme Court, going to make the final decision, or is the president going to make the final decision?
Well, I mean, our three branches of government were set up so no specific branch had all the power. I mean, we're seeing a lot of gray areas these days, but it's so important to preserve the three branches being separate. Yeah. Now, they're not totally separate. They're still part of the same corpus, the same body,
There's
right?
influences.
There's influences. I mean, the Supreme Court justices are appointed by the president, and and same with judges in the state of Florida. A lot of them are appointed by the governor. Yeah. And so there's influence for sure, but it's so important to maintain, the separateness of each branch, so one doesn't have more power than constitutionally
Well,
deserve.
and what I always try to remind people is we're a republic. We're a nation of laws, and those laws help us keep between the ditches, to say it simple. We're not going to be extreme this way or extreme that way, because hopefully the law will keep us in the middle. And I know, like, when we see a lot of executive orders, and whether you agree with them or not, and I'm not giving an opinion whether you should agree with them or not, but I'm saying even to those extent, there's still a law, and I appreciate when we go back to that and remember that that's what keeps us civil. It's what keeps some order to
Law
things.
and order, sure.
Law and order is important. One of the things I read in *Sapiens*, which is one of my favorite books, it talks about this: any establishment of a great society begins with law and order, because no one wants to invest money. I remember years ago when we were on a missions trip in Mexico, and we were in a smaller town, and the pastor was telling me that they used to have a Chevy dealership there. And I said, well, what happened to it? I said, it seems like your town's really growing. They said, well, one day, this group of basically of gangsters, and for no better way to put it, came up and decided they wanted to take a couple of the cars. And of course, where they just drove off with them. And when the man tried to stop them, they said, well, how come you didn't stop them? They said, well, they would kill my family.
Right.
So I couldn't stop them. I didn't have the power to stop them. And so guess what? No Chevy dealership there. They didn't open back up. Because if you can't protect it, you don't put your money there. You don't invest your money there.
Sure. And a lot of these countries that we've gone to, we'd be like, wouldn't it be nice to live here and own property here? But the government can just come and take your property. Yeah. So, you have to balance, like you said, somewhere in the middle. You can't have a totally lawless society. Yeah. So laws are there for a reason, but you can't have over government either. Over-government. And so it's balancing that. And I love, obviously, historical fiction and everything, but I also have a volume of Florida statutes. I want to say it's from the late 40s. And there's like 4 volumes of statutes, because that's all the laws that we had then. And now there are twice that. Okay, so I mean, we keep making laws, but there's politics in making laws. Yeah. And the more laws you make, the more laws that are broken, and so it's kind of a vicious cycle. So
it is.
And then enforcing the laws, and is that law constitutional, unconstitutional? The Florida Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. So, I mean, there's always going to be analysis of laws from the courts, and there should be.
Well, and I'm a big states person, so I really believe that the best government is the closest to us. Right. Bureaucracy is created when we get people so far away that they don't even know what they're talking about. They're just right. And of course we've learned that from our experience with Hurricane Michael and FEMA and different organizations. It's great. It's great that the federal government's there, but they're often so far away that they can't. The closer to home, the better. Yes,
and then the states' rights. The people elect. We're a democracy everywhere, and so we elect the people who represent us.
Yes.
Florida and even the Panhandle are different than the people in Maine. Yeah. And what they want, and their culture and how they think. And so I think it's important that, like you said, the people who are closest make the laws.
Yeah. I think states' rights are important, and I think that we're shifting a little more towards that. it's always going to be a back and forth. Everyone's fighting over the same football. They all want to. Every group wants to make that decision, and there's always going to be a struggle there, which is a little bit healthy. It's healthy to have a little bit of both sides of things. But at the end of the day, people want to live. They want to keep as much of their money as they can.
Right.
They want to not be over governed. They don't want to live under the thumb of someone telling them every little thing they should do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, with enough order that everyone's respected. And I don't want them to tell me I can't plant that plant on Saturday. I can't mow my grass at midnight.
We don't want the government to become an HOA.
Yeah, we don't want the government to become a giant HOA. That's probably the best analogy I've heard yet. We don't want a giant HOA. But, I could talk to you all day, and I think we're probably going to pick out a few subjects that we come back and talk about. But I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with us. We know each other from going to the greatest school in Bay County, Holy Nativity. My Olivia went there all her, kindergarten through 8th grade, and I know your kids went through there and moving on now. Is Will still?
Will's still there.
Is he there?
Yeah,
Is he 8th grade this year?
7th grade.
7th grade, growing up. They grow up so quick.
They do.
And but they're Holy Nativity was a great experience. I loved it. I love the smallness, the beauty of it.
Absolutely.
And we were so afraid to leave that, but it turns out you survive.
You do.
You go in the big fish pond and you survive.
Got to figure it out.
A lot of great people in Bay County. If you could have one thing that you could add to Bay County, what would you like to see?
Well, I think it's in the same vein of what we were talking about with the growth and the jobs.
Jobs.
It's one of my passions is to showcase our amazing area and bring these companies to our community for these jobs and industry. And we have so much to offer. And I think it'd be wonderful if we can really get a lot of these companies who we've been talking to come to our area.
That's great. Growth is good. Thank you, Holly.
Yes, thanks
you for being with us.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us on My Big Comeback.